Leo soul, if something inside you has been feeling off, like you can't quite explain the heaviness or the shift in certain relationships, trust that feeling. You're not imagining things. You didn't just stumble into this message. You were guided here because a truth is rising, and someone close to you is praying you never discover it. Let's not sugarcoat it. What's been hidden is not small. This is the kind of truth that shakes the foundation. And the reason it stayed buried so long? Because someone you consider family has quietly hoped, maybe even begged, that the universe would keep your eyes closed. But Leo, you were born under fire and light. You were never meant to live in someone else's shadow. Think back. Have you been feeling drained lately for no obvious reason? Have certain people pulled back their warmth or overcompensated with fake smiles? Have whispers made their way to you, half-truths dressed as care? That's not paranoia. That's energy. Your intuition has been picking up signals before your mind could make sense of them. And now, everything is starting to come together. Here's what's wild about divine timing. It doesn't always wait until we're ready, but it always arrives when it's necessary. This moment, this message, this shift. It's not just about uncovering a secret. It's about reclaiming a part of yourself that was manipulated through silence. We talk a lot about justice, about karma, about alignment, but what we don't talk about enough is how emotional betrayal from family hits differently. It's not just about what was said or done. It's about how long they thought you wouldn't notice. But the truth is catching up. And you're not the same Leo who stayed quiet to keep the peace. This channel, Eternal Mindfulness, is a space where we walk through truth together. Not the kind of truth that gets clicks, but the kind that transforms. And I want to say something clearly. Your presence here means something. Every time you like, comment, or share, you're not just helping this message reach more people, you're sending a signal to the universe that you're ready to listen deeper. You're planting a seed of awareness, and I see that. I'm grateful for that. So if this is already stirring something in your chest, if your breath just caught reading these words, I want to invite you to do something simple but powerful. Comment below and write, "I am ready to know the truth." Because when you write it, you claim it. And when you claim it, you make room for clarity to enter. Leo, stay with me. This message is just beginning to unfold. And what's coming next is the part they hoped you'd never hear. It might sting. But what it awakens in you, the clarity, the power, the freedom, that's what will carry you through. So tell me, honestly, what pulled you here today? What part of your spirit whispered, "This is for me"? You don't need to know the full answer yet. But you do need to stay. Because trust me, what the universe is about to reveal will not just break the illusion, it will rebuild your sense of self from the inside out. Let's take this one breath at a time, together. Leo, when the people we break bread with, the ones who once held our hand as children or whispered promises of loyalty, begin to pray behind our back, not for our protection, but for our ignorance, something sacred is broken. That kind of prayer doesn't come from love. It comes from fear. Fear that the truth, once seen, cannot be unseen. And you, dear Leo, are now standing at the edge of that revelation. It's not uncommon for family dynamics to hold back more than just affection. Sometimes, what's withheld are truths sold, weighty truths that would reshape how you see your past, your roots, even yourself. These truths might take the form of a hidden will, an inheritance someone else tried to reroute, or a decision made in a backroom that was never meant to include your voice. Maybe it's not even about money, maybe it's something more subtle, more insidious, a manipulation that has gone on so long, it was normalized in silence. And that's what makes this moment so powerful. Because when the cosmos shifts and Pluto activates your astrological house of inheritance, legacy, and deep personal transformation, it's like a floodlight is being turned on in a room that's been dimly lit for decades. What was whispered in corners now echoes through the whole house. Pluto, the planet of truth through destruction, is not subtle. It doesn't just nudge you into realization, it dismantles illusions so thoroughly that you'll never be able to look at the same people the same way again. But here's what matters, knowing this is not to cause you pain, it's to return your power. You were never meant to live in someone else's version of your story. And every time someone tried to edit you out, delay your blessings, or bend the truth for their benefit, they weren't just interfering with logistics, they were disrupting your light. Leo, you are ruled by the sun. Your nature is to shine. And no prayer, no matter how desperate or disguised, can block what the universe has already written in your name. Let's be real, these kinds of truths hurt. They can break your heart in quiet ways, not through yelling, but through the sound of your own intuition whispering, "I knew something was off." That ache in your chest isn't drama, it's wisdom. It's the body's way of catching up with what the soul has sensed all along. The therapy in this moment isn't found in confrontation. It's found in clarity. Because once you see clearly, you no longer play the role they assigned to you in their version of events. Now, if this is bringing up emotions, don't rush past them. Sit with them. Not everything that hurts is harmful. Sometimes it's just growing pains, the kind that happen when we stretch into truth after years of bending into roles that didn't belong to us. There is nothing weak about heartbreak. In fact, it often signals the birth of boundaries. You are being asked to choose integrity over illusion. That choice will never be easy, but it will always be holy. And if you're wondering where to go from here, start small. Not every action needs to be a confrontation. Sometimes, reclaiming your power looks like declining the invitation to play along. Sometimes it means saying less, observing more. Let the truth do what truth does, rise. Because eventually, everything hidden finds its way to the surface, not because you forced it, but because light always wins. So, if you're reading this with your chest a little tight, your jaw a little clenched, and your heart quietly whispering, "I knew this," then you're right on time. Trust what's being revealed. You're not losing familiarity, shedding false versions of it. And in that release, you'll find not only freedom, but a new sense of belonging with yourself, with your purpose, and with those who choose truth over silence. Sometimes the truth doesn't arrive with thunder or chaos. It slips in quietly like a memory you didn't ask for but can no longer ignore. If you've been waking up feeling drained without knowing why, if you've had dreams that leave you unsettled, or sudden waves of heaviness that don't match the events of your day, there's usually more at play than just fatigue. That's the soul's way of alerting you, something is out of alignment. And for many Leos right now, what's out of alignment isn't internal, it's what you've been made to carry from someone else. You see, there are truths that liberate, and then there are truths that first break you open. But not to destroy you. To make space. Space for clarity, for boundaries, for rebirth. In tarot, when judgment shows up alongside the Seven of Swords, it's not just about exposure, it's about revelation with purpose. These cards together speak of energy that's been manipulated behind the scenes, of someone moving in silence, shaping your emotional landscape without your permission. That's not just unfair, it's a theft of peace. And the moment you start to recognize that, you've already begun taking your power back. We often wait for others to admit what they did, to come clean, to restore what they took. But here's the hard-earned truth. Sometimes, closure is a choice you give yourself, not a favor you wait for. The universe isn't waiting on someone else's apology to shift in your favor. It's waiting on your decision to no longer stay small for the sake of harmony. It's waiting for you to say, "I've had enough." Not in anger. Not in spite. But in self-respect. I know this isn't easy. You're not just dealing with facts, you're dealing with the emotional weight of betrayal. Of realizing someone you trusted was hoping you'd never question what felt off. But now you are. And the fog is clearing. That's what energy does when you finally name it. It rearranges itself around your new standard. This isn't about becoming hard or cold. This is about becoming honest. With yourself first. Because once you see the whole picture, you can no longer pretend you're comfortable in a frame that was never made to include your truth. And there's a kind of grief in theta grief for the version of you that stayed quiet, that kept giving the benefit of the doubt, that hoped time would fix what only truth can. Let yourself feel that. But don't live there. Start small. Say less. Observe more. You don't owe explanations to anyone who would use your transparency against you. Not everyone deserves access to your processing. Let the energy speak for itself. Let your choices reflect what your words don't need to explain. That's how healing looks in real time, not as a performance, but as a quiet refusal to betray yourself one more day. If you've been looking for a sign that it's time to stop tolerating the subtle forms of control, this is it. The energy in the cosmos is shifting, but it needs your agreement. You don't have to yell. You don't have to fight. You just have to know what you're no longer available for. And if that scares you a little, good. That means it matters. This is the turning point. You don't have to live in a loop of almost knowing anymore. The truth may sting. But clarity? Clarity will let you sleep. And peace, real peace, the kind that doesn't need pretending, that's what waits on the other side. You're not walking away from love. You're walking away from the illusion of it. And that, Leo, is the beginning of your freedom. You've probably had moments recently where you sat down at the end of a long day and asked yourself, why does it still feel like I'm stuck, like the effort I'm putting out isn't coming back to me? Maybe you've been giving your all, working overtime, saying yes when you're tired, showing up even when no one notices, yet your bank account doesn't reflect it. The recognition, the results, the reward. It all feels just out of reach. And you start to wonder, is it me? Am I missing something? But the truth is, sometimes, it's not about what you're doing wrong. It's about what's been withheld from you. In astrology, when the flow of financial energy is disrupted, we look to the planetary alignments that govern expansion, restriction, and karmic blocks. And right now, Jupiter, the planet of abundance, and Saturn, the teacher of hard-earned lessons, are positioned in a way that tells me very clearly, something is about to shift in your favor. But before that shift can take full effect, there's a pattern you've got to see, not just with your eyes but with your heart. There's a difference between working hard and being energetically aligned with prosperity. You can be doing all the right things, but if someone else has intentionally or even subconsciously blocked the channel, your efforts get tangled in delays, detours, and disappointments. It could be a boss who keeps promising opportunities but never delivers. A collaborator who conveniently forgets your contribution. A relative who hides documents, drags out legal matters, or speaks on your behalf when they shouldn't. In the energetic world, intentions matter just as much as actions. Jealousy, competition, even passive resentment can create resistance in the unseen spaces where your financial blessings were meant to flow freely. And while we can't always control what others do, we can absolutely choose how long we stay entangled in it. The first step is naming it. Not blaming, just naming. Acknowledging that the blockage exists. That it's not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of an outdated energetic agreement that you're no longer available for. The beautiful part is this: once the pattern is named, the flow begins to unstick. That's when the universe starts to send you signs, small at first. Maybe you get an unexpected email from someone you thought forgot about you. A payment goes through faster than expected. A contact reaches out with a new offer. These aren't accidents. They're the results of energetic realignment. Of you choosing to no longer carry the weight of someone else's scarcity or control. I want you to really hear this: your financial reality is not a punishment. It's a mirror. And sometimes the image has been clouded by other people's fingerprints. Wipe it clean. Start fresh. And prepare, because what's coming is not only fair, it's long overdue. An offer that reflects your true value. A conversation that clears up months of confusion. A door that someone tried to keep closed but can no longer hold shut. If your energy has been knotted around survival, you now get to pivot toward stability. From just getting by to finally receiving what was always meant for you. And yes, it may still require courageous follow-up, to speak up, to renegotiate. But you'll feel the difference this time. You're not chasing. You're aligning. And when Jupiter expands and Saturn affirms your efforts, the kind of success that enters your life won't be temporary. It'll be rooted. Sustainable. Yours. So when the email comes, when the phone rings, when the opportunity presents itself, don't hesitate. That's not luck knocking. That's justice catching up. Be ready to answer. There's something incredibly raw about the way Leos love. You don't just offer your heart, you offer your fire. Your time. Your loyalty. Your entire presence. You show up fully, and when you love, you don't just want to be seen, you want to be understood. But somewhere along the way, maybe that big-hearted devotion got taken for granted. Maybe you found yourself bending, giving, proving. Maybe you stayed a little too long, hoping love would feel safe again, or waiting for someone to recognize what was right in front of them. But here's the truth many don't say out loud: not everyone is equipped to hold the kind of love you give. And some, out of their own insecurity, try to shrink it, control it, or worse, twist it to serve themselves. That's not love. That's dependence disguised as affection. And for some of you, that energy might be trying to find its way back in right now. Someone who once had a piece of your heart may sense your glow returning, and instead of celebrating your healing, they're disturbed by it. Not because they love you, but because they don't want to lose the version of you they could manipulate. It's subtle, but powerful. You start receiving messages that seem sweet on the surface but are laced with nostalgia that guilts you. Maybe they say things like, "I miss the old US," or "No one understood me like you." But if you pause and breathe into those words, you'll feel the energy behind them. Is it rooted in truth? Or in fear of your independence? Be honest with yourself, because you don't owe anyone the version of you that forgot how to breathe. In tarot, when the Lover's card appears alongside the Ace of Cups, it's a signal of emotional rebirth, but not one that comes through drama. This isn't a grand gesture made to pull you back into an old loop. This is a new presence. A new connection forming not out of urgency, but out of ease. One where you don't have to perform. Where your silence is respected. Where your boundaries are met with understanding, not resistance. Someone who doesn't flinch at your strength or expect you to dim your light to keep the peace. Think of love not as a chase, but as resonance. Like two frequencies finally aligning. This kind of love doesn't demand proof. It doesn't panic when you need space. It doesn't seek control, it seeks connection. And if you've been doing the inner work, if you've spent months or even years unlearning what love is not, then this is your confirmation that the space you've cleared was not in vain. Sometimes we mistake intensity for intimacy. But real love, the kind that heals instead of hurts, is often quieter. It feels like coming home. Not in the way that stirs your anxiety, but in the way that calms your nervous system. Where there's no scoreboard, no tests, no need to rehearse your worth. Just presence. Just truth. And if you're still healing, still untangling the threads of the past, that's okay too. You don't have to rush into something new just to prove you're over the old. The point isn't to replace someone, it's to restore yourself. And when that restoration is complete, you'll be able to receive love in the way it was always meant for you. Not as a lifeline, but as a mirror. Reflecting back the wholeness you reclaimed when you finally stopped asking for crumbs. So if someone from the past shows up now, don't just listen to their words. Listen to your body. Does it tense or soften? That's your truth. And if someone new begins to appear, pay attention to the way they look at you when you're not trying. Because that's where real love begins. Not when you're proving, but when you're simply being. Healing doesn't always come in the form of some loud breakthrough or dramatic transformation. Sometimes, it begins in quiet ways so simple they're easy to dismiss. Like the moment you finally say no without explaining yourself. Or the night you turn your phone off early just to let your nervous system rest. For many Leos, healing isn't about changing who you are. It's about remembering who you've always been before the expectations, before the pressure, before the roles you had to play to survive in rooms that didn't honor your fire. You're not here to keep proving your strength by holding in your tears or biting your tongue to keep the peace. You're here to live fully, boldly, authentically. And that kind of life requires care, the kind of care you may not have seen modeled but are now being called to give yourself. Not out of punishment or perfectionism, but because your body is tired of waiting for your permission to feel safe. Start there. With the basics. Drink more water, not just for hydration but to help your system process emotional residue. Cut back on the sugar, not because you have to be rigid, but because clarity doesn't like to sit in the fog. Get to bed earlier, not out of guilt, but because the version of you that's rising needs rest to grow. These aren't Rollis theory forms of reverence. For your energy. Your vessel. Your inner ecosystem that's trying so hard to carry all that you've been through. And if your life feels cluttered with obligations, people, or patterns that weigh you down more than they nourish you, this is your moment to reset. Boundaries are not walls, they are invitations to meet you where respect begins. Anyone who pushes against your no, or resists your pause, or flinches when you advocate for your own peace, is revealing something not about you, but about their own lack of readiness. Don't take it personally. Just take a step back. Your clarity will do the talking. And then, breathe. Deeply. Slowly. Not the kind of breath you take when you're rushing between tasks or pretending you're okay. The kind of breath that fills you from the inside. That brings your mind and body back into conversation. That reminds you, this moment is yours. Breath is the most ancient technology we have for coming home to ourselves. Use it. Let it guide you to the present, especially when your thoughts try to time travel into old wounds. A powerful practice right now is journaling just 5 minutes each morning. Don't make it complicated. You're not writing a memoir, you're making space. Let the page catch your thoughts before they scatter across your day. Use one question to start. Am I feeling free today, or am I being pulled by someone else's expectations of me? That one prompt can change the way you move through everything. Because awareness isn't passive, it's a shift point. And when you know what's steering you, you can choose to take the wheel again. None of this has to be dramatic. You don't need to reinvent your life overnight. But you do need to start. Healing isn't a finish line, it's a rhythm. A quiet, steady decision to come back to yourself again and again, even when it's easier to run, distract, or numb out. The more you show up for yourself in small ways, the more the world around you begins to shift in response. Not because it owes you anything, but because energy doesn't lie. Leo, you've done enough surviving. Now, you get to choose to thrive not by force, but by flow. Not through hustle, but through honesty. The crown has always been yours. The question is, will you wear it while tending to the soul underneath? That's the real work now. And it starts with how you care for the version of you no one else sees but you. You've made it here, and that means something. That means your heart is ready to stop carrying what was never yours to begin with. All the weight of silence, of secrets, of moments you thought you had to endure just to keep the peace, it's finally loosening. And you, Leo, are not the same soul who once mistook endurance for strength. You've outgrown that version of yourself. Quietly, without announcement, you've been rebuilding. You've been preparing. And now, you're standing at the edge of a powerful becoming. In the days ahead, don't be surprised if life presents you with unexpected turns, a shocking truth, a familiar face returning, a financial twist that seems to come out of nowhere. But remember, these moments are not designed to destroy you. They are designed to awaken you. They are divine appointments disguised as disruptions. You are not being punished. You're being crowned again with the authority that was always meant to be yours. So when the energy shifts, when the message hits, when your body tenses and your intuition says, "This is what I've been waiting to understand," pause. Breathe. Don't run. Don't react. Just stand in your knowing. Because nothing is more powerful than a Leo who finally chooses themselves, not out of rebellion, but out of reverence. You were not made to survive in someone else's version of safety. You were made to thrive in your own truth. Now is your time to take what you've learned and begin weaving it into your daily life. Not in grand, overwhelming steps but in small, intentional ones. Journal. Set boundaries. Move your body. Drink your water. Speak when it serves your soul and stay silent when it protects your peace. Choose who gets to sit at your table not based on history, but based on honor. Write this into your notebook, into your phone, into the walls of your heart if you have to. I, Leo, am sacred fire and unshakable light. The truth sets me free. I am ready to receive what's rightfully mine. Say it aloud if you feel the urge. And if this message touched something in you, leave a comment below and write, I am ready to see the truth, and I choose myself. Let that comment become an anchor, a signature on your soul's new contract with clarity. And before you go, I want to thank you genuinely for watching, for listening, for showing up not just for this video but for yourself. Every like, every comment, every share, every subscription is a ripple of light that helps Eternal Mindfulness continue to do this sacred work. Your support is not taken for granted. It fuels this community. It builds this space of awakening. So if you've made it to this point, you haven't just watched a video, you've walked a threshold. You've come back home to yourself, one breath, one truth at a time. Don't stop here. There is more for you, and it begins now. You are Leo. You are ready. And the crown that once slipped? It's clean now. Pick it up. Wear it well.